To learn about the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell notification. So I thought I'd show you the little meat birds again. We had to get 2 tubs because there were so many. We got 28 meat birds. We bought 25. They gave us 3 extra. And so far, all of them have survived. They are 2 weeks old right now. They're quite a bit bigger. In about 6 weeks, we'll butcher them. So that'd be 8 weeks old. We'll start butchering them. And then at, let's see, 12 weeks old, we should have them all finished. They grow really fast and they're gonna have huge breast meat. And so what my plan is if this all works out right, is I will butcher the biggest ones at 8 weeks. As they get older, they'll get bigger. So the smaller ones by the same time it's 12 weeks should be the same size as the 8 weeks are. So my guess is we'll probably end up butchering the roosters first because they'll be heavier. If you're feeding these Cornish cross, that's what they're called, Cornish cross, if you're feeding them 22%, they're gonna grow really fast. They're not very healthy. I say they're not very healthy. They just don't live a long time because they're produced for one reason, meat. They'll actually be very lazy. That's what they call them, is lazy. Now what Carolyn suspects it is you can see their legs already are very small, but their chest is huge. So Carolyn suspects, and I agree with her, that they weigh so much that their legs can't pick them up anymore, so they just lay around. And they live a happy life as long as you feed them and give them the opportunity to run around. Right now there's plenty of room in here for them. And that's why you butcher them early, so they don't have to suffer with all that weight and health problems that they're gonna have. They're gonna have a heart attack eventually if you keep them alive too long. And the next year, we'll probably do this again, but we're also going to raise our own meat birds from what we produce from our egg birds. So we'll deliberately keep eggs aside. We'll let them, one of the buff Orpingtons raise the chicks. And then when they're old enough, which will take much longer to butcher. So in 8 weeks, we can start butchering these guys, but it'll be almost, 4 months before we can butcher an egg. They're actually dual purpose. They're called egg and meat birds, the ones we have down there. And so it costs more in food to raise them. This is going to be a very limited amount of food in comparison. I mean, they eat a lot. Don't get me wrong. In 8 weeks, they're going to seem like they eat a lot of food. But if you're raising a chicken for 4 months, they're going to eat just probably a little bit more. So we feed them the 22% meat bird. Right there, you probably can see that on the bag, 22% meat bird starter grower. So we feed them that. So we started them out on 18% medicated because these guys have such health issues. We wanted to make sure that they didn't get any infections, coming in new and all that. Actually, I'm really surprised how many have survived. I mean, all of them have survived the 2-week mark. That is absolutely incredible. Now, we've had really mild weather. These guys don't do well in extreme temperatures. Really hot and really cold temperatures, they don't do well in. I suspect around late August, September, I guess mid-September, we'll start butchering these guys and be finished up by October. This will produce about 250 pounds of dressed meat weight. Once we debone it, then it won't be that much, but this is a considerable amount of meat. Okay, so this is a New Hampshire. Now these guys are, females, are 14 months old. And they're very timid. Now, anything I've ever read about these guys said they were going to be pretty aggressive. Well, she's wanting to go now. So yesterday, I decided that I wanted to try to introduce these guys in with the bigger chickens. These guys here. These guys are, I don't know, 5 or 6 months old now. They're producing eggs. Frenchie's fully matured. He's a male. And the females are producing eggs. So I need to start introducing the New Hampshires in with the older ones. You're supposed to introduce them from 15 to 16 weeks. Well, they're 14 weeks, so yesterday I put them in there, all 4 of them. I got 4 New Hampshires. We gave the bigger ones treats. They like bread, so they would eat the bread from Carolyn's hand. And everything went well for a while, but then Frenchie became a male and did his male thing. The New Hampshires weren't big enough to handle that kind of aggressiveness. So I left him in there for about an hour, trying to get everybody used to the idea, and then finally I took him out. What we'll have to do is we'll just introduce them a little bit each day, try to get everybody comfortable with the idea. The females seem to be okay with it. It was Frenchie that Well, I mean, Frenchie wasn't even okay with it. He wasn't being mean. He was just doing what roosters do. So we'll keep trying to introduce him. So there's a pretty big myth about mixing in your chickens with other chickens. And these guys are much older, much bigger, much more aggressive. Even though I can pet them like this, they're still pretty aggressive to other chickens. The pecking order is very fragile. And it's got to be established in an aggressive way. It's just, they peck on each other. It's pretty terrific, actually. But I've heard people say that what you got to do is at nighttime, you put the new chickens in with the old chickens, and when they all wake up in the morning, they're one big happy family. Well, that's just a myth. You won't have any baby chickens, smaller chickens, if you do that. You'd have to get up before they did. And Frenchie gets up about 4 o'clock in the morning and starts crowing. So if you didn't get up in time, they'd be picking on the little chickens until, well, there was just no little chickens left. So be careful on introductions. It's a slow process. It's something you're gonna have to work very slowly at. Now, if one of these hens here had chicks, they would protect their chicks from the other hens and roosters. If they incubate their own eggs and raise them, you won't have any problems when you do it naturally. But when you introduce a new flock in with an existing flock, you're just gonna have to be patient with it. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. Raising chickens isn't overly expensive. I mean, you buy a chicken for anywhere to $2 to $4. It is an investment. And losing a chicken costs money. You've lost the egg production, you've lost the food, you've lost the cost of the chicken. If you start losing a bunch of chickens, it's no longer cost savings. Treat these guys like a pet. I mean, if you had a big dog, think about a big dog. If you had a big dog, and you had a new puppy come in, well, the big dog might get jealous and hurt the little dog. If you're going to domesticate a chicken and raise a chicken, you got to treat it as such. You can't say, well, they're just animals, they'll figure it out. They probably won't, because that's not the way it was supposed to be done. It was supposed to be the hen raised the chicks, they protect the chicks from the other chickens. Well, you're not doing it that way. So you're breaking the natural instinct of it all anyways. I remember Frenchie. When we had the 2 other roosters, we had red, I had a red band around his leg, and we had white. Before I butchered them, he was way down on the pecking order. Some of the hens would actually peck on him. When I took white out, nothing happened, and I butchered white, and then a few minutes later, I got red, and I took him out. Well, Frenchie almost immediately stood up and he started hitting on me. He didn't want me to take red out. At first, everything was kind of a transitional thing, and you're like, well, is he ever going to really step up to the plate? Within, I don't know, 48 hours, you couldn't tell that he was not the master of the house all along. He's a really good rooster. Not too aggressive with the girls, not too timid, just a really good protector. Red would scream at everything. If there'd be a bird to fly by, he'd be giving the alarm. But Frenchie has learned to only give the alarm when necessary. They give off this alarm like there's danger. So last night, Carolyn and I had our chicken soup. This is the second time we've had chicken soup from our own canned chicken. As you know, we've been canning chicken and we canned some bacon. I think we got 90 meals now canned. That's 90 days worth of food. And this is fantastic. She used her chicken broth and the canned chicken. So a quart of chicken broth, canned chicken, and then she used spaghetti noodles, and it was a very filling meal. I mean, it was almost more than we could eat. I got 3 bowls of soup, and she got 2 bowls of soup. After I got my second bowl, she said, if there's too much, we'll go ahead and feed the rest of the chickens. I see this as a very cost savings because chicken meat is going up so high. All meat is going up very high. Carolyn says, we won't be able to afford it. And I said, no, we'll always be able to afford it. It's just that we don't want to afford it. We have found a cheaper method by raising our chickens. Which brings me to the point of today's video. I was reading comments in another YouTube channel. There was a conversation about how horrific it is that Rob's butchering his chickens. How dare he do that? That's terrible. You can't do that. Yeah, I agree. You should go to the store and buy chicken because when they buy the chicken at the store, what they do is they go over to Tyson, and Tyson actually manufactures chicken. It goes through this machine and they put the meat together. I don't know how they do it. I don't know all the details. Oh, Carolyn says she thinks they pick it off trees, but I Googled it and Google lied to me because Google said that they raise their own chickens. And that's not true, because we all know that when you buy chicken from a store, they made it or they pick it off a tree or whatever. So what we're doing here is just terribly bad and shouldn't be done. I don't know how people think. It's just incredible to me. I mean, I've always been raised out in the country, and I've lived in the city, so I've done both. I mean, I know what city life is, and it's pretty tough. But not to even educate yourself on how chicken is produced is incredible to me. It's horrible that we're butchering chicken. And I don't think these people are vegetarians. I think they're just not very smart. How else do you think chicken is done? The thing is our chickens are raised very humanely. I'm worried about spacing issues, and I'm worried about is Frenchie being too abusive? I'm worried about, is the little meat birds got plenty of room? We had to get a second basket because they didn't have enough room in the first basket. If you would go into an actual chicken farm, there are thousands of chickens just all crammed together, just as tight as they can. It's absolutely atrocious, and it stinks, and it's horrible, and it's loud. Travel behind chicken trucks, you know, semi-trucks. They had chickens in the back of the truck, and they stack them on top of each other, which means the droppings are dropping down onto the other one. I don't understand why you're watching these videos if you think, oh, off-grid living, but I'm not going to eat anything unless it's bought at the store where it's manufactured or picked off trees. So I hope I can inspire you to raise your own food when you're living your dream. Thanks for watching.